Move away, please. You like this? We started working on the prototype after you sent the destroyer. Even I don't know what it does. You want to find out? You're going to lose.
Am I?
It's in your nature.
Your heroes are scattered. Your floating fortress falls from the sky. Where is my disadvantage?
You lack conviction.
I don't think I...
So that's what it does.
The medic's hands were slick with blood, pressing down hard on the jagged puncture wound in Phil Coulson's chest. "We're losing his pulse," someone yelled. Director Nick Fury stood over them, his single eye cold and calculating. He held the bloody Captain America trading cards in his pocket. He needed a rallying cry. He needed a tragedy to forge a team out of gods and monsters. "Director, he's stabilizing," the chief medical officer breathed, astonished. The Chitauri energy from Loki's scepter, it didn't hit his heart. It cauterized the worst of the internal bleeding. He's going to make it. Fury looked at the cards. Then he looked at Coulson, pale but breathing. A dark, tactical thought crossed his mind. They need to think he's dead. Otherwise, they'll keep arguing. "Get him to a secure, off-site bunker immediately," Fury ordered in a low hiss. "Classified, level 9. As far as the Avengers are concerned, Agent Coulson died on this table." Hours later, the Battle of New York raged. From a hidden, underground SHIELD medical bay, a heavily sedated Phil Coulson drifted into consciousness. The room vibrated with the distant rumble of leviathans crashing into skyscrapers. He blinked, squinting at a small monitor overhead showing live news footage of Midtown Manhattan. He saw Thor summoning lightning, Tony Stark flying a nuclear missile into a wormhole, and Captain America leading the charge. They were working together. The plan had worked. But Phil felt a profound, heavy ache, not just from the wound, but from the lie. "Sir, you shouldn't be moving." A nurse rushed over. "My cards," Phil croaked, his voice raspy. Did he sign them?" "Director Fury took them, sir." Phil sank back into his pillows, staring at the ceiling. He was alive, but to the world, he was a ghost. And ghosts don't get to stay on the sidelines for long. 3 days after the invasion, the Avengers dispersed. Stark and Thor took Loki and the Tesseract back to Asgard. Natasha and Clint went back to the shadows. Rogers rode off into the sunset on his motorcycle. Sitting in his secure bunker, Phil Coulson was handed a secure tablet by Agent Maria Hill. "Fury wants you to rest," Hill said, her expression tight. "But we have a problem. Loki's scepter is missing. Hydra sleeper cells within SHIELD are moving in the shadows, and Project TAHITI, the alien pathogen research Fury wanted to use to revive you, has been compromised." Phil pulled off his oxygen mask, ignoring the sharp sting in his chest. He looked at the data on the screen. The Avengers had saved the world from an alien threat, but an internal rot was about to destroy everything they fought for. "Fury wants a ghost?" Phil said, his trademark calm demeanor returning, sharper this time. "Fine. Let's go hunting." The recovery was grueling, but Phil Coulson was nothing if not stubborn. Within weeks, the tissue damage from the scepter had knit itself together, leaving a jagged, star-shaped scar over his chest. While the world mourned the fallen SHIELD agent, Phil was already tracking anomalies across the globe. His search for compromised SHIELD tech led him to an undocumented energy spike in the mountains of West Virginia. There, he didn't find Hydra. He found something older. In a secluded cavern, Phil was ambushed by 2 individuals possessing impossible gifts: Lincoln Campbell, who threw arcs of volatile blue electricity from his fingertips, and Gordon, a man with no eyes who could vanish into thin air. They were inhumans, hidden from a world that wasn't ready for them. "You shouldn't have tracked us, Agent," Lincoln warned, hands sparking. Phil didn't draw his weapon. He simply straightened his suit jacket. "I'm not here to cage you. I'm here because the world is getting weirder by the second. Aliens fell from the sky last month. You have gifts, and whether you like it or not, the world is going to need people who can fight back. We hide to survive, Gordon spat. We aren't weapons. I don't want weapons. I want partners, Phil countered smoothly. I want you to join the Avengers. Lincoln laughed bitterly. A group of famous billionaires and gods? They'd see us as monsters. The answer is no, Agent. Leave us in peace. Before Phil could argue, a flash of blue light enveloped Gordon and Lincoln. They vanished, leaving Phil alone in the damp cave. Meanwhile, at the helicarrier, Nick Fury's secret didn't stay secret for long. Tony Stark had left a backdoor hacking program running in S.H.I.E.L.D.'s mainframe since the invasion. It took time to bypass Fury's level 10 encryption, but a flag finally tripped. Subject: Coulson, P. Status: vital. An hour later, the helicarrier bridge was in absolute chaos. Tony Stark, Steve Rogers, and Natasha Romanoff stormed the deck, corners of the room clearing as the Avengers' collective wrath descended on the director. You lied to us! Steve roared, slamming his hands on Fury's desk. The Force cracked the reinforced glass. You used a man's death, a friend's death, to manipulate us into a war. I gave you a rallying point, Captain. Fury shouted back, standing his ground. You were a circus act pulling itself apart. If I hadn't given you that push, Stark would have been a crater in Midtown, and New York would be a smoking ruin. He was our friend, Fury. Tony snarled, stepping up, his arc reactor glowing aggressively beneath his jacket. You don't get to play God with people's lives. Where is he? He's dead to the world, Stark. For his own safety. Then let him tell us that, Natasha said, her voice terrifyingly quiet, her arms crossed. Before Fury could answer, the elevator doors slid open with a soft chime. He's right, you know, a calm, familiar voice echoed across the bridge. The Avengers froze. Steve's jaw dropped. Tony actually stopped talking. Walking down the catwalk, looking slightly pale but impeccably dressed in a sharp gray suit, was Phil Coulson. He held a secure tablet under his arm and gave them a small, tired smile. Hi guys, Phil said. Sorry about the cards. Stunned silence on the helicarrier bridge evaporated the moment Phil Coulson laid his secure tablet on the main console. I know you're all angry at Director Fury, Phil said, looking at the team. But we have bigger problems than a fake obituary. While I was tracking rogue S.H.I.E.L.D. tech, I stumbled onto something else. A secret society. People with genetic anomalies triggered by ancient alien artifacts. They call themselves Inhumans. He swiped the screen, projecting grainy footage of Lincoln Campbell manipulating electricity and Gordon teleporting. I've met them, Phil continued, turning to Fury, Steve, and Natasha. They are highly organized, incredibly powerful, and hiding in the shadows. I think they'd make great additions to the team. They could be vital assets for what's coming next. Immediately, the room fractured. Absolutely not, Fury barked. Unregistered, undocumented, enhanced individuals with an underground network? That's a security nightmare, Coulson. We lock them down, we don't invite them to the sandbox. I agree with the director, Natasha said, her eyes tracking the footage. A secret society means secret agendas. They've spent centuries hiding. You can't trust an asset that operates entirely in the dark. It's too high a risk. They aren't assets, they're people, Steve Rogers interrupted, his voice cutting through the debate. He stepped closer to the console, studying the images of the hidden community. Look at them. They're isolated, terrified of being hunted. We just fought off an alien invasion. If the world is getting this dangerous, we could use the help. And more importantly, they might need ours. Steve, it's a tactical blunder, Tony started, but Steve held up a hand. Ignore the protocols for a second, Steve said, looking directly at Fury, Natasha, and Tony. We can't just react to threats after cities get leveled. We need to build bridges. I want a meeting, all of us, the entire team, and the leadership of these Inhumans. Fury scoffed, and Natasha frowned, but Steve's authority as Captain America carried a heavy weight. Under his steady glare, the room grew quiet. If this goes sideways, Cap, it's on you, Fury muttered reluctantly. Days later, using coordinates Phil had meticulously tracked, a cloaked S.H.I.E.L.D. Quinjet touched down on a misty, neutral plateau in the mountains. The heavy ramp lowered. Steve Rogers stepped out first, flanked by Tony Stark in full armor, Thor, Natasha, Clint, and a nervous but determined Phil Coulson. Bruce Banner remained aboard the jet, keeping his distance. From the fog opposite them, a blue light flashed. Gordon appeared, accompanied by Lincoln, a fierce warrior named Alicia, and Jiaying, the scarred, elegant leader of the Inhumans. Both sides stopped 10 yards apart. The tension was suffocating. Thor held Mjolnir loosely at his side, while the Inhumans shifted their weight, ready to unleash elemental fury at a second's notice. "You brought the Earth's mightiest protectors to our doorstep, Agent Coulson," Jiaying said, her voice dripping with cold caution. "Should we consider this an act of war?" Steve stepped forward, unstrapping his shield and holding it at his side to show he wasn't attacking. "Not a war, ma'am," Steve said, his voice echoing across the plateau. "An introduction. My name is Steve Rogers. We know you want to protect your people. We want to protect the world. I think it's time we talked about doing both, together." Jiang looked at the legendary Captain America, then at Phil Coulson, who gave a reassuring nod. The era of the Avengers was changing, and the world would never be the same. Silence on the misty plateau stretched so thin it felt ready to snap. Jiaying looked at Captain America, then glanced back at Lincoln and Gordon. After what felt like an eternity, she stepped forward, her expression softening just a fraction. "We have spent generations in the dark to keep our children safe from a world that fears what it does not understand," Jiaying said, her voice steady and resonant. "Because of that, we cannot join your Avengers. We will not be soldiers in a human army, nor will we subject our people to the oversight of governments." But she looked at Phil Coulson, acknowledgement in her eyes. Agent Coulson showed us respect when he could have brought fire. If Earth faces another threat like the one in New York, the Inhumans will answer the call. We will aid you when we are needed. As allies, not subjects. Steve Rogers nodded, satisfied. "That's all we could ask for. Thank you." Before the tension could fully dissipate, a sharp, repetitive chiming erupted from Nick Fury's tactical wristcom. The director frowned, tapping the holoscreen. A global threat map projected into the damp air, flashing a violent crimson. "What is that?" Natasha asked, her hand instantly dropping to her holster. "We've got a massive atmospheric anomaly," Fury said, his eye narrowing as he read the incoming telemetry. "Satellites are picking up a dense, cloud-like mist originating from an offshore facility in the Atlantic. It's moving fast, sweeping across the eastern seaboard. It's bypassing standard biofilters, but there's no sign of standard toxins." Jiaying's face drained of color. She looked back at Gordon, panic flashing across her features. "What did you do?" Phil asked quietly, sensing the immediate shift in her demeanor. "It was an accident," Lincoln stammered, stepping forward defensively. "We were trying to find a way to preserve our heritage. We engineered a controlled dispersion of the Terrigen mist, the catalyst that awakens our gifts. It was supposed to be a localized test to see if we could activate latent bloodlines safely. It wasn't supposed to breach containment." "A mist?" Tony Stark's faceplate slammed shut with a mechanized hiss. The repulsors in his palms whined to life, glowing a lethal, brilliant blue. "You spilled a cloud of alien gene-altering gas over the entire country? Are you out of your minds? It is not a weapon." Jiaying shouted, but Tony wasn't listening. "I've seen enough mad scientists for one lifetime," Tony yelled, completely losing his temper. Driven by pure, impulsive panic over what this gas might do to millions of innocent people, Iron Man launched himself forward. A repulsor blast caught Lincoln square in the chest, sending him flying into the rocky terrain. "Stand down, Stark!" Steve roared, but it was too late. The plateau erupted into total chaos. Seeing their own attacked, Gordon grabbed Alicia, and in a flash of blue light, a dozen clones of the warrior girl materialized out of thin air, swarming the Avengers. Thor swung Mjolnir, summoning a crackling barrier of lightning to keep the clones at bay, while Natasha and Clint went into a defensive crouch, firing non-lethal shock darts to incapacitate the threats. Lincoln pushed himself up, his eyes glowing blue as he hurled a massive arc of electricity directly at Iron Man, short-circuiting Stark's flight stabilizers and sending him crashing into the dirt. "Enough!" Phil Coulson screamed, drawing his high-tech shield prototype rifle and firing a concussive pulse into the air between the two factions. The sonic boom rattled everyone's teeth, forcing a sudden, breathless pause in the violence. "Look at the data!" Fury ordered, stepping between Iron Man and Jiaying, holding up his tablet. His voice carried the absolute, unyielding authority of a man who commanded the world's premier spy agency. "Stark, shut those damn repulsors off and look!" Tony pushed himself up, his armor sparking slightly, and scanned the data Fury projected. "The mist, it isn't fatal," Fury announced, his single eye scanning the rapid shield medical updates coming in from New York and Washington, D.C. The readings show 0 casualties. It's entirely harmless to normal human DNA. But for anyone with a specific, dormant genetic marker, it's triggering a metamorphosis. It's changing them. Fury lowered the tablet, a dark, brilliant spark of tactical calculation returning to his eye. He looked at Steve, then at the Inhumans. "This isn't a crisis, Stark." "It's an awakening," Fury said, a grim smile touching his lips. "The world just got a lot more dangerous after Loki. We need an edge. If this mist is creating thousands of enhanced individuals across the globe, that's not just a threat. That's a whole new pool of potential assets." "They aren't assets to be collected, Fury," Steve said firmly, though he stepped back from the combat stance. Jiaying stepped forward, her hands raised to signal her people to stand down. "The director is right about one thing. Our people are awakening across your world. They will be confused, terrified. They will need guidance, or they will become dangerous to themselves and others." Phil Coulson lowered his rifle, wiping a bit of dust from his suit jacket. "Then we compromise. You won't join the Avengers, and we won't hunt your people. But we need a bridge. A liaison. Someone who understands what these new Inhumans are going through, but who can work alongside us to keep the peace." From the shadows of the fog behind Jiaying, a massive, imposing figure stepped forward. He wore a striking black and silver suit, a tuning fork emblem glittering on his forehead. He didn't speak. He didn't have to. The sheer aura of power radiating from him made even Thor raise an eyebrow in respect. "This is Black Bolt," Jiaying introduced solemnly, bowing her head slightly to the Silent King. "He is one of our greatest leaders. His voice holds the power to level mountains, which is why he chooses absolute silence. He will join you, not as a subordinate, but as our representative to the Avengers. He will help you manage the newly awakened, and ensure that humanity and inhumanity do not destroy each other." Steve Rogers walked up to the Silent King and extended his hand. Black Bolt looked down, his expression unreadable, before reaching out and gripping Captain America's hand in a firm, binding handshake. Tony sighed, his armor deactivating. "Great. A guy who doesn't talk. Honestly, after today, that's a massive upgrade." Phil Coulson watched the exchange, a genuine smile finally breaking across his face. He had survived a stab wound from an alien god, a fake death, and a shield conspiracy, all to stand on a mountain and witness the birth of a new era. The world was changing faster than anyone could have predicted, but as Phil looked at the combined force of the Avengers and the Inhumans, he knew they were ready for whatever came next.